Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by MFC Bantamweight Anthony Birchak. Anthony, how are you?
Good, I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Anthony, you got a fight coming up May 10th at MFC 37. How's training been going for the fight?
It's been going good, man. You know, all my teams got fights coming up. Right after me, you got my teammate Chris Carriazo, who's fighting down in Brazil. He's fighting Jussier Da Silva on FX8 for the UFC. And then shortly after that, May 25th, you got George Roop, who's fighting on in Las Vegas, May 25th. So we're all just kind of, been beating each other up, taking care of each other, and really making sure we're getting the best potential training out of every session.
Mm-hmm. You're training out of Apex MMA?
Yes, Apex MMA and Rise Combat Sports here in Tucson.
I see. And now, some of those guys at Apex, you mentioned Chris Carriazo, George Roop. There's also Ed West. He trains at Apex. What's it like on a day-to-day basis training with those guys?
It's awesome, man. I get a really good look at a high level BJJ guy like Chris, and then he's a brown belt under Ralph Gracie or Baja Gracie. And then I got, long guys like Roop to figure out how to close the distance and get in range. And then I got a super dynamic striker like Ed West. We kind of cover the whole gamut of styles. And then I got, guys like War Monkey Parker who fought in Bellator, who's a really stud wrestler, high level jiu-jitsu as well. And then Freddie Lux, which is he's like my road dog, man. He covers all the high level wrestling and stuff. So we got a pretty good spectrum of talent here, and they're all coming in their special ways to help everyone else train out for a fight.
Mm-hmm. How great is it to have not only high level fighters at your gym, but also have guys that are high level and at the same weight class as you? Carriazo, he's a 125er, but still pretty close, and he's fought at 135 before. But how good is it to have those training partners that are really close to your size?
It's great. Chris has been a huge part of this camp. Benoit's a little bit shorter than me, and I think he's right around Chris's height, around 5'3", 5'4", 5'5", whatever. But finding my range, finding my timing with a fighter like that, someone that's got good kicks and good hands. With his range, he's able to go back from southpaw or orthodox, so I get both looks. Like I said, it really just prepares all of us for it's kind of like musical chairs of who's going to sit in, who's going to go out, on depending on who our opponents are. But it's awesome. You really get to good looks. We don't have to travel to Jackson's or travel to California to get everything we need right here at home.
Mm-hmm. Now, where exactly is this gym located? Is it located in high altitude, or is it just normal sea level? Where's this gym located at?
Oh no, we're in Tucson. Tucson's about 2,500 feet above sea level. Mm-hmm. It's right. It's probably about 4 miles away from the foot of Mount Lemmon, which is it ends up getting to about 9,500 feet. So we do a lot of incline training, a lot of elevation training up at Mount Lemmon. One of our kids fought up in northern Arizona, and he was doing a lot of his cardio up on the mountain. And that kid was just charged. Nick Rhodes was his name, and he ended up beating two-time Bellator veteran Jacob DeVries to retain his APC title. So, we're at a pretty decent level. I know Edmonton's right around 2,000 to 2,200. So I have full faith in my cardio, and I should be able to be an output machine for this fight.
Mm-hmm. Have you determined who's going to be cornering you for this fight?
Yeah, Ed West is coming out with me. He's my main corner.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, Anthony, you're going to be taking on Ryan Benoit. There's been a whole Twitter battle going on between you two. I'm just curious, how did this whole thing all start?
It was just kind of stirring the pot. Me, Mark, Scott Zier, we were just all talking about hyping this fight up, and I like talking smack with a certain flair. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just kind of went out like that. It was Paul Magliani, the pro boxer, was fighting Adrian Broner, and I saw that he had put his double-ended bag, and he set it like at waist height, and then took a picture and said, I set my crazy bag at Adrian Broner height. So I thought that was hilarious. So once I started doing it, I started playing on Ryan Benoit's size, and I tweeted a picture of this big boxer fighting a midget, and it kind kind of, after that, it was just kind of words exchanged. Well, he ended up calling my fiance a badass, and that's where I just lost it, and the playfulness of the conversation left. So once that kind of happened, it's kind of been more, I am going to make him, to be held accountable for his words on May 10th.
Now, Anthony, you've been everywhere. You've done a lot of interviews. You've really gotten your name out there. You really helped promote this fight a lot. Is this normal for you when you have a fight coming up? Are you trying to get the word out? Are you constantly telling people what you got going on? Or is this something that's new to you because you're back fighting on a big stage, live TV, kicking off a division? Is this a certain a special circumstance, or is this just the usual for you?
Oh, not at all, man. This is the usual. Mercedes White is the CEO of Luther Elite MMA Sports Management. She does a great job to promote all of her fighters. We got some really tough lady fighters here. Out of Phoenix and out of Tucson. And that's just something we pride ourselves on. Is the sponsors pay money to hear their people out there and know that their fighters' names are constantly being circulated. And that's what we pride ourselves on here at Luther. We're constantly in either a media channel or social media, or trying to be, active in our community. Like, I just put out a flyer for, the official viewing party of MFC 37 that's going to be 2 blocks from the University of Arizona campus here in Tucson. So I try to get, the U of A students into it, kind of get Tucson, the fight fans here in Tucson into it. So everything is always about, staying current, staying relevant, and, being one of the most noticed fighters on the forefront.
Do you know Benoit, before this fight? Had you ever heard of him before you were signed to fight him? Or is this, is he a new guy to you and you just know about him because, he's signed to fight you and he's going to be your opponent? Had you ever had, any interaction with him before? Because, this Twitter battle, got me thinking that, maybe there might be a little bit more there. Had you known him before this?
Not at all. That's one thing. He's like, I've never heard of you. Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I've actually fought on some big networks. I've fought on MTV2. I've fought on Combate Sports in Brazil. I fought on Telemundo and Univision. I've fought on these big networks. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm talking about actual TV networks. And I was like, well, MTV is kind of a big network. And he's like, well, I've been fighting on active TV, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, dude, you fought for a regional show that just happened to have a TV deal. He's been beating up all these kids in Texas, with 2-2 records, 4-4, 8-11. I think the guy that beat him was 12-10. It's not like he's fighting dudes with stellar records. I'm going out to Jackson's MMA and beating up their number 1 cat that's 9-2. I'm taking guys, from here in Arizona that. One of the guys was actually my really good friend. We were on the Arizona National Wrestling team together. We were on the Arizona All-Star team together. We ended up having to fight each other because, we're at the same weight. And the kid had, 5 knockouts and 1 standing guillotine, John Jones-esque style. I'm always testing myself. When I fought in my Bellator fight, I was, 3-0 fighting a guy that was 7-3. So, he says he's never heard of me. The one time that I heard Benoit was when I saw him fight Joseph Sandoval, who I was chomping at the bit to beat up. That kid's got a jaw blast, and of course Ryan threw a perfect 1-2 right down the pipe, caught the kid, knocked him on his butt, and finished him with a TKO. So, that's the very first time that I heard of Ryan. Is I was actually watching Joseph Sandoval, and I saw this kid. So.
Now, what are your thoughts about him as a fighter? What are your thoughts about his skills that he brings into the ring?
He's always coming forward. I think he's got a good stand-up. He says he wants to test me everywhere and this, that, and the other. But he said he wrestled at Menlo College, which is the NAI division, and he says he's got this height. He's better than me on the ground. He's better than me at wrestling. He's not a Greco national champ. He's not a Greco All-American like myself. He's not a freestyle All-American like myself. He hasn't wrestled with top-name fighters throughout his whole college career like myself. I could name drop all day, but the thing is, the fact of the matter is I know my facts. I know where I've been, and he needs to look in the mirror and really, truly tell himself, did I really wrestle with the cream of the crop? Did I really win that? Did I really win that title? Did I really win this? A Texas big runner-up is like being, you know, the best ice hockey player in Mexico. Like, who cares? You know what I mean?
Now, where do you feel that you have the advantage in this fight?
I feel everywhere, you know.
Sure.
You know, the stand-up that he has is very orthodox Muay Thai. I'm coming all different angles all the time. You know, he says I throw wild, and, you know, I would say a wild punch is more dangerous than a crisp punch, because you don't know where a punch is coming from. But, you know, as far as my quote-unquote wild punching, I think just my range is better than his. You know, obviously I have high-level wrestling, high-level jiu-jitsu. I think, you know, once I can mix up my striking and kind of frustrate him on the feet, then I can, you know, really start implementing my game, which is, you know, taking him down, ground and pounding him, looking for the submission, letting him up, tagging him, you know, on the feet, and then going back to the ground.
Now, what does he do that, I don't want to say worries you, but what does he do that when you're in there fighting him you need to be aware of and you need to be cautious of when fighting him? What does he do that you need to be on your guard about?
I can't let him get on the inside, you know. I can't let him bully me like he's been bullying these small little 135ers. You know, he's never fought anyone as big as me. So, you know, for me to be able to keep him at range and you know, being able to frustrate him is going to be key. You know, I can't let him get inside. I can't let him start throwing his big old overhand uppercut. He has this combo where he throws a 2-5-2 or a cross uppercut cross. You know, and I saw him TKO guy with that one. You know, he's got this lead round kick. So if I can avoid his kicks and I can avoid, you know, these big uppercut punches and hooks, then I think we're going to be going home early on May 10th.
Now, this is going to be the first fight in MFC history for the Bantamweight division. How much does it mean to you to be one of the two fighters competing in the first Bantamweight fight for MFC?
It means the world to me. You know, Mark is the one that signed me first. I was, you know, essentially the face of the division for a minute. And, you know, I continue to, you know, express my pride and just how stoked I am to be, you know, my kids can look back and be like, oh yeah, these Bantamweights, you know, that are fighting in the MFC now, well, my dad started that, you know what I mean? He was one of the first guys. So I think it's huge, you know, and I think Mark brought the Bantamweights on at a good critical time, and he signed to the baddest dude. So we're gonna be, you know, we're gonna be coming forward. We're gonna be knocking each other in the face and leaving leather out there, man. The
MFC, they brought you in for two reasons. The first reason is they were starting this Bantamweight division, and that's the weight class that you fight in. And the second reason is because you're a finisher. You're going out there and you're finishing guys, and that was Mark Pavich's one critique of the Bantamweight division is there's not a lot of guys finishing each other. There's a lot of guys out there who don't have the finishes. They have a lot of decisions on their record, but you're a finisher. How much pressure do you feel, you know, going into this fight trying to, you know, I don't want to say, you know, to get a finish, but how much pressure do you feel to try to prove Mark Pavich right and say, you know, this guy is a finisher, you know, this is the kind of guys we want in our Bantamweight division? Do you feel pressure at all trying to prove him right?
No, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, I'm the one that's in the ring, you know what I mean? As much as everyone wants to see a finish, I'm the one that's, you know, sticking my neck out there. I'm the one that's, you know, doing the work for the night. So whether I want to implement my game plan and that's stick and move, or if I see some openings, then I'm going to capitalize and you know, give him one of these spectacular finishes that I've been giving. You know, that's all mine personally. But you know, I pride myself on finishing. I never go out there, you know, expecting to finish. I always expect a 15-minute grueling war. I want to drag dudes into deep water. You know, that's one thing. My cardio, I've only been able to show my cardio off once, and I ended up finishing the guy off at the very beginning of round 3. So, you know, that's one thing I pride myself on is that I got a gas tank, but, you know, it's just been so happening that I see these openings and I finally finish.
How blessed do you feel to have this opportunity? Because you're a guy who, you know, you fought for Bellator before, you fought for Amazon Force Combat, which is a large organization down in Brazil. You've been trying to get back to a big organization for a while. The MFC, you know, they're 2 or 3 or 4 in the world right now, depending on who you talk to, for mixed martial arts. You know, how much does this opportunity mean to you, and how, you know, great is it that you're finally back in a big show?
Oh, it's awesome. You know, I definitely would you know, tout MFC as top 2 for sure. You know, it's right there between, you know, them and Bellator, and I think, you know, it's just the way that Mark does everything that's so family oriented. You know, it's wonderful. anytime I hear the dude talk, he's got so much passion and drive. That's something that I want to be a part of. You know what I mean? Anything that he talks about like that, that's something that I want to be a part of. It gets me excited. You know, it keeps me motivated, and to be able to say that, you know, I'm back on the big stage and it's for the MFC, I'm absolutely elated. Mm-hmm. You know, for him to invest into me, and I guarantee, and I told him I promised that I would be his first Bantamweight world champion.
Mm-hmm. How many fights did you sign on for with MFC?
I had a 4-fight deal, so you know, that should carry me on into 2014 somewhere, and you know, if obviously I want to be able to win that title and defend it a few times. Mm.
Has Mark Pavlich or someone from the MFC said, "Hey, if you win this fight, you're getting a title shot"?
Yeah, basically, this is a number one contender spot right here. You know what I mean? If I win this fight, I'm you know, fighting somebody either at MFC 38 or MFC 39, depending on you know what they figure out with the card. But I know Mark has stated that he wants to crown a champion by November.
Mm. Now, obviously, you know, the old saying is your next fight is your most important fight, but really, how important is this fight for you? Because if you win this fight, you get a title shot. If you lose this fight, that sends you down the ladder a long time, and, you know, the MFC, with the way their format is, they don't have the show frequency that some of these other organizations have, so it'll take you a little bit longer to get back to where you would be in a position to get a title shot. So how important of a fight is this for you?
You know, I treat every fight like a title fight, you know what I mean? I'm not fighting Ryan Benoit May 10th, I'm fighting GSP. You know, that's how I treat everything. I train very hard. I try to outwork everybody in my gym. You know, they try to outwork me, and it becomes a competition within ourselves. This is a huge fight for me. You know, whether I beat or lose to Benoit is inconsequential. The thing is this fight has got so much riding on it that there is no option for me to lose or fail. Like, I will be successful, and I will, you know, be victorious on May 10th. To be able to, you know, try to put all that weight on it, like, oh, if I don't beat this guy, then I won't have a title shot, or it'll be that much further since I have, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Luke Moromo just lost the lightweight title to Graham Spencer, and he's back on this card with me. You know what I mean? So,
sure.
You know, Mark knows who's the guys that are hungry and who always want to put up a show, and you know, I absolutely expressed to Mark that I want to fight my 4 fights back to back, and definitely continue to put on a show for the MFC.
Mm-hmm. Anthony, on May 10th, how does the fight end?
I'm going to submit Ryan. I'm going to find his neck and I'm going to rip it off.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ryan, he's coming up next. He's going to be on here in 10 minutes. Is there anything that you'd like to say to him?
No, he's predicting that he's going to knock me out at 2:30. And I'm just going to be telling him the whole time that time's running out, and at 2:31, Ed West are going to start talking a lot of smack. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anthony, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you would like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Yes, I would absolutely like to thank my sponsors, man. Everyone's been so great to get behind me and back me. I got Kimura Wear out of Canada. You know, they've been sending me some awesome fight gear. They just sent me some brand new gloves, MMA and boxing. I love them. I want to thank Contract Killer, who's doing my clothing for the fight. I want to thank Mentum Eyewear, Zyphos Training and Tactical here in Tucson, and then Exclusive Customs in Las Vegas. Mike Rotrella, he was a huge help when I was out there at Extreme Couture. I can't thank him enough. But just want to tell everybody, make sure you watch me live on Access TV. It's Direct TV, Channel 340, Dish Network, Channel 167. Live May 10th, Access TV. Make sure you guys watch us.
Anthony, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck at MFC 37 on May 10th against Ryan Benoit.
Awesome. Oh, and guys, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @Birchak. I'm super active with all my fans on Twitter. I love talking to everybody, so hit me up and follow.